Nothing about that week looked dramatic from the outside. It was just a receipt, folded once, shoved into the glove compartment like trash. The kind of thing you only notice when you're looking for a pen and your fingers brush paper you don't remember putting there. A hotel. Off Route 9, Friday night. The date on it mattered because my husband Ian had looked me straight in the eyes and told me he'd be at a mandatory teachers conference that weekend. The kind you can't miss. The kind that always comes with printed agendas and forced smiles. He'd even added it to our shared calendar, like honesty could be scheduled. And that same weekend, my younger sister Diana had marked herself as out of town for work. Diana sells luxury vehicles at a high-end dealership about an hour south. She's the type who walks into a room and the room adjusts to her. New demo car every month, expensive grin, effortless charm. The kind of confidence our parents worshipped like it was a virtue instead of a warning. I didn't confront Ian. Not yet, because in my experience, the truth doesn't come from yelling. It comes from watching, from letting people believe they're safe. So I started collecting screenshots of weird messages, receipts, charges that didn't match the story, credit card statements line by line until my eyes went dry. And that's when I found it. Another hotel charge, 3 months earlier. The exact weekend Diana had been mysteriously unavailable during our cousin's birthday dinner. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then came last Friday, my parents' monthly family dinner. Same routine. Dad at the grill, Mom fussing, Diana showing up late with that charming grin that makes people forgive her before she even speaks. Ian barely talked in the car, just scrolled, quiet, restless, like he couldn't wait to get away from me. Inside the house, I watched them with clear eyes for the first time. Diana's hand lingering a beat too long on Ian's shoulder. A private joke about a song on the radio. And Ian, my husband, laughing with Diana in a way I hadn't heard in months. After dinner, Diana offered to help with the dishes. Mom practically glowed. I stayed with Dad, half listening, but my real attention was fixed on the kitchen doorway. And then I heard it, Diana's voice, low and casual. Tonight, same place. Ian whispered back, soft as a blade sliding in. He won't notice. He never does. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. Ice cold, perfect clarity. Because in that moment, I realized my marriage wasn't cracking. It was already gone. And the people I trusted most were standing in the kitchen, planning what they were going to take from me next. I'm Claire Bennett. I'm 34 years old. And if you asked anyone who knew me, my coworkers, neighbors, even most of my extended family, they'd describe me with the same words: steady, practical, reliable. The person who shows up early, the person who remembers birthdays, the person who pays bills on time and keeps backup copies of everything, just in case. I work as a regional operations manager for a mid-sized company. It's not glamorous, but it's solid. It's the kind of job where you learn to read patterns, where you learn that the smallest inconsistency usually points to a bigger problem. I spend my days solving issues before they become disasters. I just never thought I'd have to apply that skill set to my own husband. I met Ian 8 years ago at a friend's housewarming party. He was standing near the kitchen island, laughing politely at someone's story, holding a soda like he didn't quite know what to do with his hands. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He had a calmness that felt safe. He told me he was a teacher. He loved his students, he said. He liked the structure of it, the purpose. He talked like someone who wanted to build a life, not chase a thrill. And that mattered to me, because I didn't grow up in a soft, easy home. I grew up in a family where things looked good from the outside, but inside there were invisible rankings you learned early. My parents adored my younger sister, Diane. They wouldn't say it like that, never directly. It was always phrased as admiration. She's got charisma. She's destined for big things. She just has that spark. But the message was clear. Diana was the bright, golden center, the orbit of attention, the one people made excuses for. And I, without anyone ever meaning to be cruel, became the dependable background, the good one, the one who didn't cause stress, the one who didn't need much, the one who would always understand. So when I fell for Ian, I fell hard. Not because he was exciting, but because he felt like someone who would choose me in a quiet, unwavering way. Someone who would stand beside me, not behind someone else. We dated for 2 years before we got engaged. The engagement wasn't a social media spectacle. No crowd, no grand proposal. Just Ian in our living room, hands shaking slightly as he opened a small box, his voice catching as he asked if I'd marry him. I said yes, and I meant it. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, family there. My mother cried. My father gave a toast about loyalty and commitment, like those were sacred values in our family. Diana showed up late to the reception, of course. Some dealership event, some couldn't get away excuse. She arrived with her usual grin, hugged me too hard, and whispered, "You did good, sis," as if my marriage was a purchase. Ian and I built a life the way adults are supposed to. A house, 2 cars, routine dinners, shared calendars, a joint credit card for groceries and utilities, separate retirement accounts, weekend chores, a few trips here and there, nothing flashy, but stable. And in the beginning, it really was good, until it wasn't. The shift wasn't one big explosion. It was a slow erosion. Ian laughing less, touching me less, pulling his phone away when I walked into the room, being tired more often. And when I'd ask gently if something was wrong, he'd smile like I was imagining it. Work's just been a lot. The school's stressful. I'm fine, Claire. And because I wanted so badly to believe him, I learned to swallow my own instincts. Meanwhile, Diana stayed Diana. New cars, new watches, new stories. She'd breeze into family dinners like a storm, wrapped in cologne and confidence. My parents would light up. My mother would fuss over her like she was still a child. My father would laugh too loudly at her jokes. And Ian? Ian always seemed a little too entertained by her, a little too eager to impress her. I told myself it was normal. Diana was charismatic. People gravitated toward her. I just never considered the possibility that my husband might be gravitating in a way that had nothing to do with admiration and everything to do with betrayal. Because I didn't think betrayal would come from inside my own family. I didn't think it would wear my sister's grin. And I didn't think it would sound like my husband's voice. Soft, calm, familiar, saying, "He won't notice. He never does. Once you notice a crack, you can't unsee it." That week after the family dinner, everything felt sharper, like my senses had been dialed up against my will. Sounds lingered longer, silences felt heavier. Even the way the house smelled in the mornings, coffee, detergent, something faintly metallic, made me feel like I was standing inside a place that no longer belonged to me. I didn't accuse Ian. I didn't cry or demand explanations. I watched. He started changing small things, passwords, phone placement. He'd set his screen face down, always. He took calls outside, claiming better reception, even though our signal had never been an issue before. When he showered, he locked the bathroom door, something he'd never done in 8 years of marriage. And the excuses became rehearsed. Mandatory staff meeting, curriculum planning, grading backlog. Always work. Always plausible. Always just boring enough that challenging it made me sound unreasonable. Meanwhile, Diana's behavior shifted too. She started texting more often. Casual check-ins disguised as concern. "How's work? You seem stressed lately. You and Ian doing okay?" At first, I read it as sisterly interest. Then I noticed how often those texts came right after Ian had left the room. Or how Diana always seemed to know when Ian wasn't home. Once, I came back early from the office, unexpected, unannounced. Diana's car wasn't there, but Ian was pacing the living room like he'd been startled awake. "You okay?" I asked. He jumped. Actually jumped. "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Stuff." He smiled, leaned in, kissed my forehead like it was a transaction, not affection. I let it go, because that's what I'd always done. The documentation became routine. I created a folder on my personal email, labeled innocently, Utilities 2024. Inside it, screenshots, PDFs, photos, time-stamped, backed up, duplicated. I wasn't emotional about it. I was methodical. Credit card statements showed patterns. Fridays, Saturdays, out-of-town conferences, hotel bars, late dinners, expenses that didn't align with a teacher's per diem. Then there were the calendar overlaps. Ian would mark himself unavailable. Diana would do the same. Different reasons, same weekends. When I asked Ian about one of them, casually, over dinner, he didn't even look up from his plate. Diana was busy that weekend too, I said lightly. Funny coincidence. His fork paused. Just for a second. Then he laughed. Guess everyone's busy these days. But his jaw tightened when he chewed. My parents didn't help. They'd started dropping little comments at dinners. Not accusations, suggestions. You know, my mother said once, stirring her tea, Diana really understands people. She's very intuitive. My father nodded. Some people just know how to keep things exciting. They said it like it was harmless, like it wasn't aimed, like it didn't land exactly where it was meant to. And Ian, my husband, sat there smiling, nodding along, as if he were part of the audience, not the subject. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and realized the bed was empty. The bathroom light was off. The house was silent. I found him in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, whispering. He didn't see me at first. I can't talk long, he murmured. She's asleep. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. Tomorrow night, he said. Same arrangement. I stepped back before he turned around, went back to bed. Lay there staring at the ceiling while my heart beat steadily, calmly, like it already knew the outcome. Because by then, I wasn't wondering if something was wrong. I was waiting to find out how deep it went, and how many people had been lying to my face while smiling like family. I waited until the house was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes with sleep, but the deliberate kind. The sound of water running upstairs, the shower door sliding shut, Ian humming faintly, off-key, relaxed, relieved. That was the part that hurt most later, how relieved he sounded. I sat on the edge of the bed for a full minute, listening, counting my breaths, making sure my hands didn't shake when I reached for my keys. Then I walked out through the garage like I was running an errand. I knew exactly which hotel it was. I'd memorized it the moment I saw the charge. A mid-range place just off Route 9. Not fancy, not cheap. The kind people choose when they don't want to be noticed, but still want comfort. I parked 3 rows back from the entrance. Engine off, windows cracked just enough to let air in. My phone rested in my lap, camera app open, battery full. I didn't feel dramatic. I felt precise. 20 minutes passed. Then Diana's silver Audi pulled in, smooth and confident like always, parked near the side entrance. 5 minutes later, Ian's Honda arrived. Different entrances, same destination. My chest didn't tighten. My stomach didn't drop. Instead, something inside me went eerily calm, as if my body had finally accepted what my mind already knew. I took photos, clear shots of both vehicles, time-stamped, location tagged. Then I got out of my car and walked into the lobby. The front desk clerk smiled politely, young, tired, bored. I might be early, I said gently, playing the role perfectly, but I'm checking to see if there's a reservation under my name. She nodded, typing. Then paused. Oh, she said, it's actually under a different name. She turned the screen slightly. Diana Bennett, room 237. She hadn't meant to show me. I smiled anyway, thanked her, walked back outside like my legs hadn't just learned how to move again. I sat in my car, and that's when I heard it. A text notification, not from my phone, from the passenger seat, Ian's phone. He'd left it in the car. My fingers hovered over it for a second, just a second. Then the screen lit up again. A message preview from Diana. Don't worry about the divorce. We'll clean her out together. She won't see it coming. I stared at that screen for a long time, not blinking, not breathing. Then I took a screenshot. Emailed it to myself, deleted the notification from the lock screen so he wouldn't know, placed the phone back exactly where it had been, and smiled. Because now I knew, not suspected, not assumed, knew. This wasn't just an affair, it was a plan. I drove home calmly, parked, walked inside, went straight to bed. Ian was already there, hair damp, lying on his side, scrolling his phone. "You okay?" he asked casually. "Headache," I said, "going to sleep." He leaned over and kissed my temple. Soft, familiar, fake. The next afternoon, Diana texted me, "Hey, mind if I swing by to watch the game?" Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't spent the previous night plotting how to dismantle my life. I replied, "Sure." Then I opened the security camera app on my laptop. 2 years earlier, after a break-in scare on our street, I'd had cameras installed in the living room and kitchen, fully legal. Video and audio, everything backed up to the cloud. I checked angles, sound, storage, all recording. Diana arrived at exactly 2 p.m. Designer jeans, expensive polo. That grin that had gotten her out of everything her entire life. She clapped me on the shoulder like we were friends, like family. "Where's Ian?" she asked casually. "Out shopping," I said. "Craft store or something." I sat across from her with a beer. "Actually," I said calmly, "I wanted to ask you something." She raised an eyebrow. "Shoot." "Ian mentioned you've been helping him look into some legal matters." Her hand tightened on the bottle. "Legal matters?" she repeated. "Divorce." She laughed. Full, confident laughter. "Wow," she said. "Rough patch, huh? Divorce isn't cheap." "For who?" I asked. She leaned back, completely comfortable now. "Well, for you," she said with a shrug. 8 years of marriage, half the assets. That's how it works. I watched her face carefully. She was enjoying this. "You already knew that," I said quietly. "Didn't you?" Something shifted. I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward her. The text. "We'll clean her out together." The color drained from her face, then came back. Hard. She smiled. "So," she said, "you finally figured it out. No denial. No apology. Just arrogance." And that's when I knew the confrontation I'd been preparing for wasn't with my husband. It was with the woman who'd always believed the world belonged to her, and was about to learn exactly how wrong she was. For a moment after Diana said it, "So, you finally figured it out," I didn't respond. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I was watching myself from the outside, noting how calm I looked, how steady my breathing was, how my hands rested loosely in my lap instead of shaking the way people expect them to when their life collapses. "Figured what out?" I asked quietly, even though we both knew the question was a formality. She took a long drink from her beer, eyes never leaving mine. "That Ian and I are done pretending," she said, "and that you were never really part of the future." The words should have hurt more than they did. Instead, they landed like confirmation. "How long?" I asked. She shrugged. 1.5 years, maybe more. Time blurs when something feels right. Something inside my chest tightened. Not sharply, not explosively, but like a muscle finally overworked. "And the divorce?" I asked. "That was always part of the plan?" Diana laughed again, shaking her head. "You really don't get it, do you? Ian came to me first, complained you were boring, predictable, said he felt invisible in his own marriage." I felt my jaw clench, then relax. "And you believed him," I said. "I didn't have to believe anything," she replied smoothly. "I wanted it too." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. The way she paced my living room like she owned it. The way she spoke about my marriage like it was an expired contract. "He's my husband," I said. "He was," she corrected casually. That was the moment something broke. Not in me. "Between us. Get out," I said. She stopped pacing, smiled wider. "Or what?" she asked. "You going to scream? Cry? Call mom and dad? That'll be fun." I stood up slowly. "Get out of my house." She stepped closer. Too close. "You know what your real problem is, Claire," she said softly. "You think being good matters. It doesn't. People like me, we take what we want." She poked my chest. "I always get what I want." The shove came fast. I stumbled back into the wall. My shoulder hit hard. Before I could fully recover, her fist swung. I ducked on instinct, drove my elbow into her ribs. She grunted, swung wildly, caught me in the jaw. We crashed into the coffee table. Wood splintered, glass shattered. She hit the corner hard. Blood burst from her nose instantly. She dropped to the floor, clutching her face. "You broke my nose," she gasped. I stood over her, breathing hard, knuckles stinging, heart steady. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "My sister attacked me in my home," I said clearly. "She's injured. I defended myself. There are security cameras recording everything." Diana stared up at me, eyes wide. "You're calling the cops?" she croaked. "Yes," I said, "I am." When the operator asked for details, I gave them calmly. The shove, the swing, the self-defense, everything. 6 minutes later, sirens cut through the quiet. Paramedics loaded Diana onto a stretcher. Broken nose, possible concussion, stitches required. Police officers took my statement. I showed them the footage, the text message, the timeline. They nodded, took notes. Then my phone exploded. Missed calls, messages, my parents, Diana's husband, Brandon, accusations, demands, panic. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. Subject line: need representation immediately. And for the first time since this started, I felt something close to peace, because the truth was no longer mine to carry alone. And no matter how hard they tried to rewrite it, the cameras didn't lie, the messages didn't lie, and neither did I. By the time the ambulance doors closed and the police cars pulled away, the house felt hollow, not quiet, emptied, like everything meaningful had been ripped out and replaced with echo. I locked the door, leaned my forehead against the cool wood for a second, and let myself breathe. Not cry, just breathe. Long, controlled inhales, like I was stabilizing after turbulence. Then my phone buzzed again. "Mom." I silenced it. 10 seconds later, Dad, then Bethany, then a group message notification I didn't even have to open to understand. I already knew what was happening. The narrative was being built. I went into the kitchen, stepped around the splintered remains of the coffee table, poured myself a glass of water with hands that finally trembled. Not from fear, from the delayed recognition of danger past. I sat at the kitchen island and opened my email. Everything I had: hotel photos, screenshots, security footage, the text about cleaning me out. I sent it all to my attorney. Malcolm Reeves, former prosecutor, ruthless when necessary, expensive for a reason. Subject line: immediate representation, criminal incident, divorce pending. I hit send. Then I waited. The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls. My mother had left 3 voicemails. The first was panicked. The second was angry. The third was cold. "Claire," she said, voice tight, "your sister is in the hospital. What you did was excessive. Your father and I are deeply disappointed. Call us back immediately." I deleted it. Bethany's message came next. "What is wrong with you? She's hurt. The kids are scared. You've gone too far." Gone too far. The audacity almost made me laugh. By noon, Malcolm called. "I've reviewed everything," he said. "You did exactly what you should have done." "They're going to try to spin this," I said. "They already are," he replied. "Your mother called the station this morning, claimed you've been unstable for years, jealous of your sister since childhood." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. "They're pushing for assault charges," Malcolm continued, calm and unbothered. "But the footage is crystal clear. Diana initiated physical contact. You defended yourself. The self-defense claim is airtight." "What about Ian?" I asked. A pause. "He hasn't contacted me directly," Malcolm said, "but expect him to fight the divorce aggressively. Alimony, assets. He thinks he's entitled." I smiled. "Let him." That afternoon, my cousin texted me screenshots from the family group chat. I'd been removed. The messages were brutal. Claire has always resented Diana. This was inevitable. She finally snapped. We have to protect her at all costs. Not one mention of the affair, not one acknowledgement of the betrayal, just the preservation of the golden narrative. I forwarded everything to Malcolm. His reply came almost instantly. "Perfect. Let them fully commit to that story." 2 days later, I was served. Diana filed a civil suit, $50,000 in damages, medical expenses, Emotional distress. I handed the papers to Malcolm without a word. Expected, he said, scanning them. We'll countersue. For what? Alienation of affection, he replied. Still applies in this state. Her affair with your husband is actionable. I leaned back in my chair. Do it. Friday morning, the district attorney's office called Malcolm. He put it on speaker. We've reviewed all evidence, the prosecutor said. The video clearly shows Diana initiated the altercation. We're declining to file charges. Malcolm smiled at me. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time in weeks. That same afternoon, I walked into the county clerk's office and filed for divorce. Grounds, infidelity, evidence attached. I paid extra for immediate service. By noon, a process server walked directly into Ian's classroom, 5th period, and handed him the papers in front of 23 students. Petty? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. My phone rang within the hour. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. You're tearing this family apart, he said. Your mother is beside herself. Diana is scared. You're making everything worse. Call me back. We need to fix this. I deleted it. Then I called Malcolm. File the civil suit against Diana, I said, and move aggressively on the divorce. There was a pause. You sound very confident, he said. I am. Why? Because 8 years ago, when Ian and I got engaged, my parents insisted I protect myself financially. They pushed hard for a prenuptial agreement. I'd signed it without much thought. Barely read it. Assumed it was standard. And? Malcolm asked carefully. There's an infidelity clause, I said. If he cheats, he gets the minimum allowed by law, nothing more. Silence. Then laughter. Actual laughter. You've been sitting on a loaded weapon this entire time, Malcolm said. I didn't need it until now. What about assets? He asked. The house was mine before the marriage. He's not on the deed. Most accounts are premarital or inherited. His teacher salary versus mine? It's not even close. Another pause. They think they're cornering you, Malcolm said. Your family, your husband. They think pressure will make you fold. I looked out the window at my quiet street. They have no idea what's coming. And for the first time since this began, neither did they. The crash doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it arrives quietly. After the paperwork, after the phone calls stop, after the adrenaline drains and leaves nothing but a hollowed-out stillness behind. That's where I found myself, alone in a house that suddenly felt too big. The coffee table was gone, hauled away with the rest of the broken wood, but the empty space it left behind felt like a wound that hadn't closed yet. I kept catching myself staring at it, as if something might reappear if I looked long enough. Sleep stopped coming easily. When it did, it was shallow and fragmented. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just the hum of the refrigerator and my own heartbeat pounding too loudly in my ears. This was the part no one warns you about. Not the betrayal, not the confrontation, not even the legal war. The aftermath. The moment when you're no longer reacting, no longer fighting, and all that's left is the question you can't stop asking. How did I let my life get here? I replayed everything. Every dinner where I swallowed discomfort. Every moment I told myself I was imagining things. Every time I chose peace over truth because it felt easier in the moment. I didn't miss Ian. That surprised me. What I missed was the version of myself who believed her marriage was real. The woman who thought loyalty was mutual. The woman who didn't have to document her own life like evidence. And then there was my family. That hurt in a different way. I could handle losing a husband who betrayed me. Losing my parents? That carved something deeper. They hadn't just taken Diana's side. They'd erased me from the story entirely. Rewritten me as unstable, jealous, dangerous. As if my entire life could be reduced to a convenient flaw that explained away everything Diana had done. I tried not to check the family group chat screenshots again. I failed. Reading them felt like pressing on a bruise just to prove it still hurt. Protect Diana at all costs. Claire's always been difficult. This was bound to happen. 8 years of marriage destroyed. A sister sleeping with my husband. A plan to strip me financially. And still, I was the problem. That was my lowest point. Not the fight, not the betrayal, but the realization that the people who raised me, who taught me about right and wrong, had chosen comfort over truth, and that no amount of evidence would ever change that. One night, I sat on the floor of the bedroom with my back against the bed, knees pulled to my chest, staring at my wedding ring lying on the dresser. I hadn't worn it since the hotel. I picked it up. The metal felt colder than I remembered. I thought about the day Ian put it on my finger, how proud he'd looked, how safe I'd felt, and I felt nothing. No nostalgia, no longing, just distance. That scared me more than anger ever could, because anger means you're still connected. Indifference means something has died. I wondered, briefly, if walking away made me cruel, if setting boundaries meant I was becoming like them, if choosing myself meant I was abandoning the very idea of family. That's when the doubt crept in. What if I'm wrong? What if I should have handled it quietly, privately? What if calling the police, filing the suit, pushing forward, it all made me look exactly like the villain they were painting? I stared at my reflection in the dark window. Tired eyes, drawn face, shoulders tight with held-in tension. I didn't recognize myself. And for the first time since this began, I cried. Not loudly, just silently, tears sliding down my face as my chest shook with the weight of everything I'd lost. Not just people, but certainty, identity, the story I thought my life was following. I cried until I had nothing left. Then I wiped my face, stood up slowly, and walked into the bathroom. I looked at myself again, really looked, and I realized something important. This wasn't rock bottom because I was weak. This was rock bottom because I'd finally stopped lying to myself. And that meant the only direction left was forward. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know what it would cost. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I was done sacrificing myself to keep other people comfortable. And that decision, quiet, uncelebrated, deeply personal, was the moment everything began to change. The shift didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a dramatic revelation or a perfectly timed speech. It was quieter than that, built from small, undeniable facts, stacking up until the weight of them finally tipped the scale. The first thing that changed was my posture, not physically, internally. I stopped explaining myself. When Malcolm called with updates, I listened without bracing. When emails came in from Ian's attorney, aggressive and condescending, I read them like reports, not attacks. When my parents' numbers flashed across my screen, I let them ring without guilt clawing at my chest. Because guilt only works when you believe you've done something wrong. And I hadn't. The real turning point came during the first mediation session, February. Neutral conference room, frosted glass, bottled water no one touched. Ian walked in late. Of course he did. Black suit, hair perfectly styled. That familiar expression he used to wear at school functions. Polite, wounded, righteous. He didn't look at me. His attorney, Victoria Hart, did. She was exactly what her reputation promised. Sharp, efficient, predatory in a controlled way. The kind of woman who measured people the moment she saw them and decided how hard to press. She opened aggressively. My client is entitled to 50% of all marital assets, she said crisply, including the residence valued at approximately $480,000, retirement accounts totaling $340,000, and Malcolm didn't interrupt. He waited, then calmly slid a document across the table. The prenuptial agreement. Victoria picked it up mid-sentence and started reading. I watched her face change. Not dramatically, subtly. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes slowed. "What is this?" Ian asked, finally looking at me. "A prenuptial agreement," Victoria said slowly. "Signed by you. February, 8 years ago." "I don't remember signing that," he said sharply. "Page 7, Malcolm added mildly. Clause 4B, Victoria read it out loud. "In the event of infidelity committed by either party, the offending party forfeits all claims to spousal support beyond the minimum allowed by state law. All premarital assets remain separate property." Ian went pale. "That can't be enforceable," he said. "It is," Victoria replied. "It's notarized, witnessed by 2 attorneys. You had independent counsel present." "I didn't know what I was signing," he snapped. "Ignorance isn't a legal defense," Malcolm said calmly. "You were advised to read it. You declined." The room went quiet. For the first time, Ian looked small. "What about alimony?" he asked, voice cracking just slightly. "I supported her career." Victoria checked her notes. "Your income averaged $43,000 annually. Hers averaged $135,000. There's no documented career sacrifice." The lie collapsed under its own weight. The mediation lasted 2 hours. Victoria fought hard. I'll give her that. But facts don't bend for performance. Final offer. Ian keeps his car, personal belongings, and receives $600 a month in alimony for 18 months. That was it. In the hallway afterward, he broke down, full sobbing, hands shaking, voice raised enough that people looked. "I gave you everything," he said, mascara-free tears streaking his face. "I supported you." I looked at him. Really looked. "You lied to me," I said quietly. "You planned to take everything from me, and you did it with my sister." 3 days later, he signed. That night, I went home and slept for 8 uninterrupted hours for the first time in months. The next domino fell quickly. Bethany filed for divorce, full custody, maximum child support. Diana couldn't afford a competent attorney. My parents were already paying her civil suit lawyer. Their resources were thinning fast. Then Malcolm called again. "Your sister's civil case is collapsing," he said. "Security footage killed it. Her attorney knows it. They're posturing." "And the countersuit?" "It'll settle eventually. Legal fees alone will bury her." I hung up and sat in silence, not celebrating, not gloating, just absorbing the truth. I hadn't won because I was ruthless. I'd won because I stopped protecting people who were actively hurting me. That was the moment I understood my power hadn't come from revenge. It came from clarity. And once you have that, everything else follows. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It unraveled in stages, quiet at first, then painfully public. By March, the rumors had outpaced the truth. Small industries talk. School districts talk. Dealerships talk. People whisper at gas pumps and in break rooms and pretend they're not watching someone else's life disintegrate. Diana's performance at the dealership cratered. She'd been a top seller for years, 6 figures, bonuses, demo cars rotating monthly. But confidence only works when people trust you. And once word got out about the affair, the lawsuit, the police report, buyers hesitated. Managers watched more closely. Her numbers dropped by 70% in 2 months. Then came the DUI. She'd gone out drinking after another explosive argument with Ian, one of many I later learned. She drove 3 blocks, blew a .12, license suspended, arrest record. The dealership fired her the next morning. Conduct unbecoming of brand standards. I didn't hear it from her. I heard it from my cousin. Then Bethany's divorce hit hard. She wanted the house, primary custody of both kids, maximum child support. She got most of it. Diana couldn't pay. My parents tried to help, again. Legal fees, rent, groceries, anything to keep her afloat. It wasn't enough. By April, Bethany filed for contempt of court. Missed payments, late payments, broken promises. Jail time became a real possibility. Ian's fall was quieter, but deeper. The school district placed him on administrative leave while they investigated ethical violations. Parents complained, emails circulated. The affair, documented, undeniable, spread faster than anyone could contain. Teacher contracts have morality clauses. By March, he was officially terminated. Teaching license under review. Permanent record flagged. He applied everywhere. Private schools, tutoring centers, community programs. Rejections piled up. The $600 in monthly alimony I paid barely covered groceries. Diana couldn't contribute. They moved apartments 3 times in 4 months. Eviction notices followed them like shadows. Utilities shut off. Cars repossessed. And through it all, my parents kept insisting it would turn around. It didn't. By June, my cousin sent me a photo, an eviction notice taped to their apartment door. Unpaid rent. Utilities in arrears. They're sitting in the dark, she wrote. Literally. Another message followed a week later. Diana's car got repossessed. Ian's asking people for grocery money. I stared at the screen, feeling something close to disbelief, not satisfaction. Just inevitability. The social fallout was brutal. Extended family saw everything. The evidence, the court filings, the lies. Diana stopped getting invitations. Conversations died when her name came up. My parents became isolated, embarrassed, defensive, exhausted. They drained their retirement accounts trying to save her, cashed out early, paid penalties, threw everything at legal fees and child support. Still not enough. In July, they sold their house, the one they'd lived in for 30 years. Sold it fast, under market value. Moved into a small apartment across town, thin walls, no yard. My cousin told me my mother's health declined rapidly. Stress-induced hypertension, 3 medications, constant fatigue. My father stopped returning friends' calls, stopped going to church. Went to work, came home, stared at the television. They'd built their entire identity around protecting Diana, and she'd burned it all down. By August, Diana was working overnight shifts at a gas station, minimum wage, no benefits. Ian picked up hours at a coffee shop, barely enough to keep phones on. They fought constantly, parking lots, stairwells, public spaces. Blame ricocheting between them like shrapnel. Ian's parents disowned him, said he'd made his choices. Diana had no one left except my parents, who had nothing left to give. I didn't track any of this deliberately. Information just found me. Small towns don't keep secrets. I moved into a new place downtown. 10th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Clean lines. Clean slate. Started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to stay whole. Work promoted me to regional director, more responsibility, more travel, better pay. I started seeing someone casually. Sloan, finance, smart, independent, no drama, no expectations. Easy, normal, healthy. My parents called twice. I didn't answer. They sent a Christmas card. I threw it away. Unopened. I wasn't angry anymore, which surprised me most of all. I just didn't care. And that was the real consequence they never anticipated. Not the lawsuits, not the job losses, not the public shame, but the fact that the person who always fixed things finally stopped. September came quietly. No court dates, no emergency calls, no new scandals. Just the slow, unfamiliar feeling of peace settling into places that had been clenched for years. I took a weekend trip upstate with Sloan. A small cabin, no cell service, long hikes, simple meals. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, just earned. When I came back Sunday evening and checked my phone, there were 17 missed calls. My cousin, an unknown number, and my father, 12 times. No voicemails, just persistence. Then a text from my cousin. They're coming to you. I tried to stop them. I'm sorry. I opened my security camera app and rewound the footage. There they were. My parents' car parked outside my building. Inside, my mother, my father, and Diana. They waited for hours. I didn't rush home. I made dinner, watched television, took a shower. Let the moment arrive on my terms. Friday evening, just after 7, the doorbell rang. I checked the screen. They looked smaller than I remembered. Older, worn down by choices they could no longer outrun. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. My mother cried immediately. Please, she said. She's your sister. Family forgives. I leaned against the door frame, calm. Family protects, I said. You protected her, not me. My father stepped forward, desperate. We sold the house. We're broke. Your mother's sick. We have nothing left. Diana finally spoke, voice hollow. I lost everything. No, I said quietly. You gambled it away. Ian appeared behind them then, thin, exhausted, eyes sunken. He looked at me like he wanted absolution. I was stupid, he said. I listened to her. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I reached into my pocket and handed my father a business card. My therapist's office. 6 sessions, I said. I'll cover them, for Mom. After that, you're on your own. My mother stared at me like she didn't recognize me. That's it? My father asked. That's more than you gave me, I replied. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there listening as their voices faded down the hallway. 3 months later, Diana filed for bankruptcy. Ian moved back in with his parents in another state. Retail job, no teaching license, no future plans. My parents downsized again. I got promoted. Again, bought a cabin upstate, made my relationship with Sloan official. I don't think about them often anymore, but when I do, I remember this. Walking away wasn't revenge. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. Some bridges burn because they were never meant to carry you forward. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop trying to save people who are drowning you and choose yourself instead.